Hey everyone, it's Jonathan, and welcome back to our series on Disney's Peter Pan. Today we're moving on to the sequel, 2002's Return to Neverland. Stanford Clark is back for this one, as the original Peter Pan was one of his favorite movies growing up, so I was really curious to see how he would feel about this one, which came out almost 50 years after the original. One thing we didn't talk about when we recorded, mostly because I hadn't discovered it yet, but this movie was very loosely based on the final chapter from the original Peter Pan story by J.M. Barrie. The final chapter, When Wendy Grew Up, was actually added to the book a while after it was first published, but is now included in pretty much every reprinting since. Apparently this chapter is only occasionally used in productions of the play, and I'm not sure how often it's used for film adaptations. I can't really think of any right off the top of my head. But either way, it was enough to provide a premise for this film, even if they took it off in their own direction. So, when did you first watch this one?
I went and saw it in the theater in 2002 when it came out,
Oh, okay.
but with a grudge because I'll be perfectly clear, knowing that this was made by, the TV animation group, and also like, did Peter Pan really need a sequel?
That's how I feel about most of the ones that we call the direct-to-video ones. Even though this one did go to theaters, it's like
Yeah,
most of these did not need to exist.
exactly. That's the perfect way to say it.
I will say though that this is probably on the better end of the spectrum compared to
Yeah,
some.
the production values on this one were higher. I thought the animation quality was better.
Hmm. And the story
And
felt a little more natural than like Bambi 2, where they had to
oh,
just invent a thing that
right.
happened before he grew up.
Yeah. Like Cinderella too, it's just
Oh
like
yeah, that one might be the worst one actually.
what in the world?
And Bambi 2 is one where it absolutely did not need to exist, but they did the best that they could, and it's one of the better ones too. Even though
Yeah.
it's a weird movie, but
Yes. But I really overall, have a problem with these direct to video sequels or cheapquels,
yeah.
just that they were a money grab. I mean, I've heard from friends that with children in particular, they say that it's fun for the kids to have another adventure with these characters that they love.
Hmm.
But it just seems unfortunate that they aren't good. And
No,
uh
they feel like that they were like, well, the big boss wants another one. What can we
yeah,
do?
what can we do that's kind of
Just throw some ideas together.
quickly? Yeah. Uh so the concept of this one is kind of interesting, I think the way that they put it together, but there's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of other stuff to unpack on this one.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I guess we can first talk about the cast, which is obviously a completely different cast. Although, from what I read, they actually recorded the entire movie with Catherine Beaumont reprising her role as Wendy and then replaced her, which I was mad about when I read that. I was like, why on
Yeah.
earth would you do that?
Why would you do that? I wonder if there was some contractual things or something, but
Well, the thing that I read said that they just replaced her because her voice sounded too old. But like Catherine Beaumont, still not recently, but at the time, she was doing both Alice and Wendy in shows like House of Mouse and Kingdom Hearts, the video game series. So if she is not too old to literally reprise the character as a kid, why did they think she was too old sounding for this
that,
movie?
that is messed up.
Yeah, I was
Yeah,
annoyed when I read
yeah.
that.
Oh, with cause. That's frustrating. I think that Corey Burton, who's multi-talented, very talented,
Yeah,
I thought he really captured
yes.
Captain Hook.
He nailed the character.
Yeah,
You,
yeah.
if I hadn't known, I would have thought that it was the same guy
Is the same.
almost.
Yeah, he does an excellent job.
And they had Jeff Bennett as Smee.
Yeah, and he's
He
quite
was
good too.
close. He was
He's close.
close. It
Yeah,
wasn't perfect, but he was closer than I expected.
right. And I was glad that they tried at least to capture that voice sound rather than having just going a different route or just
Yeah.
picking somebody completely different. That worked for me. And I thought that the animation was pretty good. And in this one that they seem
Hmm.
to spend a little bit a little bit more money on it, and that it looked pretty good. I mean, nowhere near as beautiful as the original,
Of
but
course.
when you compare it to some of the other cheapquels, it looks a little better.
Yeah.
And maybe that's why they decided, to put it in theaters, or maybe that was already, the goal
I think it might have been the goal. I think this one was planned to be the first sequel to go to a theater.
to go to the theater.
Because up until this point, they had just been direct to video.
Yeah.
We also have Blaine Weaver as Peter Pan, who I'm not familiar with.
Yeah. I don't know who it
He
is either.
sounded fine, but I didn't think he sounded the same. Like, I didn't
No,
think he was a perfect replacement.
I didn't think he was a perfect replacement either. It's just it could have been anybody, you know.
Probably, yeah. And you have Harriet Owen as Jane, who is Wendy's daughter. And of course, she's not in the original movie, so there's no comparison for her. She sounded
Right.
fine too. She was
Yeah, she was
a decent sounding
she
character.
was perfectly fine. Yeah.
And most of the other people, I don't think I recognized
Yeah,
anybody
I
else.
didn't
You have
either.
Andrew McDonough as Daniel, don't know who he is. Roger Rees as the father, who is not a big character. He's at the beginning and end. One that did stand out, like I'm not too familiar with them, Spencer Breslin played
Yeah.
Cubby. He
Yes.
went on to do other things too. He was a child star at the time.
Yes. And I believe he is related to Abigail Breslin. I think he's
Yes,
her brother.
yes. And I'm more familiar with her because Signs is one of my favorite movies.
Yeah. And she was such a talented
Oh,
child
she's an
actress.
amazing child actor.
Yeah. Oh, so good.
Although I did read that Spencer Breslin was nominated for an award for his performance in this movie, and I was like, of all the characters,
What?
like why Cubby in this movie?
That's weird, isn't
It
it?
said he was nominated for the 2003 Young Artist Award as Best Performance in a Voiceover Role at the 24th Young Artist Awards. Like, okay,
Sorry to laugh. It's just like,
it must not have been a crowded field in
yeah, it's just
2003.
a random
Although it says he
because
was nominated, so he didn't win.
he didn't
So maybe
win.
they just needed a couple extra people to throw in to the pool.
It sure didn't seem like a standout, but really, to me, the only standout was Captain Hook. It was Corey Burton as Captain Hook.
Yeah, most of the other people, well, I wouldn't know their names to begin with, but they
Yeah,
didn't have anything that really stood out to me as a great performance.
yeah,
They did what they needed to do. Although we did also have Frank Welker in here. He's a voice
yes,
actor. He did the octopus and also Nana 2. This, I
Nana
like it
too.
didn't say Nana 2, but like as soon as she made a noise, I was like, that's Frank Welker.
Good call.
There's something about his animal noises. I can just tell when it's
You can
Frank
just tell
Welker.
this all this Frank Welker. I initially rolled my eyes with Nana too. Um,
Me too.
but my cute nephew, when he was young, he had a dog named Shadow, and something happened to Shadow. And I think either Shadow got sick or it just wasn't a good match for the family or something. So Shadow went to another home, and then they got another dog, it worked out great. And his name was Shadow 2, Roman numeral 2. And they just called him Shadow, but I remember that was on his tag, Shadow 2.
Yeah,
So I rolled my eyes with Nana too, but then I'm like, oh, okay.
yeah. My first reaction was like, really? You couldn't think of
Yeah.
something more original? But
Something more
it is something that some
original.
people do.
Yeah. Although I still would have liked an original name, or just
Yeah,
a different, or just a kind of a different dog, type
yeah.
of dog. But anyway.
And I should also mention we talked about Catherine Beaumont getting replaced. She was replaced by Kath Suchi, who's another big voice actress. Like nothing against her, of course, because she's fine in this role, and she's a
Yeah.
really good voice actress. So
Yeah, and she's done a ton of work, right? I mean,
yeah,
yeah.
she's done so many things. So she's good in this role. I just wish it would have been Catherine Beaumont.
I do too. I mean, because again, linked it to the original,
Yeah,
in a
yeah.
nice way. But maybe, Captain Obama can feel grateful. Anyway,
Well, this movie starts in a way that is like so of the time. And it's one of the big problems that I have with a lot of these direct-to-video sequels. They do not sound like they belong as a sequel to the original just because of the music. This starts with a very 2000s sounding rendition of Second Star to the Right.
Yeah.
It's just,
Instantly, I rolled my eyes when I was like, oh dear.
it instantly dates the movie.
Yeah. And I had forgotten. I mean, because I only saw it the one time in the theater, and then I was more just like, please never let me see this movie again, you know. But I was happy to watch it because it's been a long time. So it was
Yeah.
okay. It's been, 21 years. And I think overall that's one of the issues I have with this movie because again, I know it's the TV studio and they're have a different sensibility and a different audience, kind of a different purpose. But as you said, it immediately dates it, and it also just feels out of place because all the songs are more, or most of the songs are more modern, or more poppy.
Yes. Though
Uh,
it's the same thing happened with Bambi too. It just
okay,
felt wrong because
yeah,
like the original has a specific sound, and this does
hmm,
not feel like it belongs with the original based on the music alone.
yeah,
Because like with Bambi, it was like this, I don't remember the group's name, but like there was a specific sound to the quality of the music. And Bambi 2 was like very country. I think Alison Krauss even did one of the
oh,
songs on
you
the
know what? I
soundtrack.
think I remember that. Yeah. Okay.
And I haven't watched it yet, but I know Fox and the Hound did the same thing when they did a sequel. I think Reba McEntire did some of the music. She's like even a voice in the, like it's just it. I don't know why they feel the need to
Wow.
modernize it so much.
Yeah.
It feels weird.
Hmm.
So this movie takes place decades after the first movie. Wendy is grown up. She's married someone named Edward, and they have two kids, Jane and Danny, and a dog named Nana too. And Edward has to leave to fight in World War II, which I kind of liked the setting because
Me
it made
too.
sense with the era that the first one was from, and moving it up a few years made sense to set this in World War II and have the initial conflict in the family revolve around that.
Yeah.
I just wish they could have done it better.
Right. Same.
Her daughter, Jane, is the main protagonist here, of course, growing up too quickly because London is being torn apart by World War II.
Hmm.
And she is rejecting the stories of Peter Pan, but her little brother hasn't. And like, I hadn't seen this movie before now, watching it for the podcast. And I was like, I was waiting for Danny to go to Neverland too, because like that would be so great for him. And then he didn't get to go, and I was like,
I
what?
know.
Why?
The
Poor
kid really
kid.
would enjoy it. Or to have kind of a sibling adventure,
Yeah,
to improve their relationship. But
yeah.
yeah.
But I really liked how Wendy was using the stories of Peter Pan to distract Danny from the war happening outside while they're in the bunker.
I did too. I thought that worked.
Yeah,
That was smart.
it was the perfect excuse for the stories because like there's bombs happening, so she tells them that they're
Right.
cannonballs.
Like
Like,
having to go to the bomb shelter and
yeah,
scare everybody scared to death.
hiding from the pirates instead of the
Yeah,
Nazis.
instead of the Nazis. Yeah. And I thought it worked, and it brought a level of believability. I mean, I don't know what would be the right word, but
Yeah,
just yeah, it just it
it felt real.
yeah, it felt real.
And then they tie this into the thing that actually happened with kids being evacuated to the countryside for their safety. Wendy tells Jane and Danny that they have to go, and this leads to a big fight and another very stereotypic sounding melodramatic early 2000s ballad about no such thing as faith and trust in pixie dust.
Oh, that's where I was just like, oh my goodness, I'm ready for it.
Yeah, yeah. And it was interesting though, the song sounded so familiar to me. Like I have never seen this movie, but it sounded so familiar, but also completely unfamiliar at the same time. And then it played again over the credits, and I suddenly had an epiphany. And I pulled out my phone and do you know the app Shazam?
Oh yeah,
Where so I used that on it,
I
and
used to just am all the time.
it was a song called I'll Try. And I realized this song was on an album I had. Are you familiar with the Disney Mania series from the
Oh,
early
absolutely.
2000s? They
Yes.
had this on one of the Disney Mania albums.
Oh.
It was somebody else did it. I don't remember who it was, but it wasn't the same
It
artist.
wasn't the same artist that's in it was on the film.
Yeah, so that's why it sounded very familiar, but also completely unfamiliar because the lyrics, when I got a better listen to the lyrics, I was like, this sounds, I know I've heard this before.
No.
Yeah, at the time, well, when I was a teenager, I was obsessed with the Disney Mania series. Like every time one came out, I was like, I've got to get the next one.
Oh, those were great. I
I
love
wish they still
those.
made them.
I do too.
I always like Disney cover albums. I was always I was trying to collect them, and they kind of don't do them anymore, as far as I know.
Yeah.
So, anyways, Jane cries herself to sleep, and then in the middle of the night, Captain Hook arrives on a flying pirate ship and kidnaps her, mistaking her for Wendy. I was like, why does he have the pirate ship, and why is it still flying? Because like the pixie dust isn't permanent. Like when they used the pixie dust in the first movie, it wore off after a time. Like they needed to reapply. So I was confused as to why the pirate ship was flying.
Me too. Because Tinkerbell's not there.
Yeah, he doesn't have a pixie. Well, as far as we know, maybe he's got pixies below decks,
Right. That are
chained to the hull.
Tinkerbell's friends are like that whole concept was weird. I mean, again, it seemed like okay, this is how they're going to propel this story forward. I mean, and the flying pirate ship didn't look horrible. I think they were using a lot of CGI.
Yes, there was a lot of CGI mixed with 2D in this scene.
Yeah,
And
and
it
it
was it
wasn't
was fine.
terrible.
I can't criticize it too hard because there's a bunch of movies that I like from this time period that do it worse.
Yeah,
So I can't
exactly.
criticize this one too much
It
because
was just more like I don't get the flying pirate ship, and then also
yeah,
though, and once the pirate ship starts going, it's really a weird way that they go back to Neverland.
it's
Or
this is why I'm sure that it's supposed to be another dimension because they like go through this kaleidoscope portal. Like
yeah,
it's not exactly the same.
it's like the
Like
world of Tron, and you're just like, what is this?
yeah. Like it's fine. Like I like the idea. It's just weird.
They access it like by going through the middle of Big Ben.
Oh, did they? I must have
Yeah,
missed that. Maybe I
like
was writing some notes and I
if
missed
I'm
the
not mistaken,
portal
the pirate
opening.
ship like goes right through Big Ben, and it's not like they break the glass or anything. It's just that's when the kaleidoscope starts. And I think ultimately the
Okay.
kaleidoscope ends with the second star to the right. The other two stars.
Well,
Like,
maybe Captain Hook has, in between films, accessed some sort of interdimensional portal technology, and he can now open kaleidoscope portals, taking them between London and
exactly.
Neverland.
Stuff can change. Or maybe it's more efficient. I mean, I can't. I don't want to like be too critical. It seemed like such a drastic change.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Of all the changes, though, this is the least the least egregious.
yes, yes, and yes.
So apparently their plan is to take Jane back to Neverland and feed her to an octopus in order to lure Peter to his death.
I mean, I'm just shaking my head. Because yeah, the crocodile is still longer.
I was like, why? They should at least explain that because there's like one line later on about, I just got rid of the crocodile and now I've got this thing chasing me,
Yeah,
something like that.
this crazy octopus.
Yeah, because you have, of course, Peter comes in, saves Jane, and Tinkerbell uses her pixie dust to pull the octopus out of the water and drop it onto Hook. And it tries to eat him, gets a taste for him, and now he's the new crocodile.
Yes,
Because he also thinks that Hook is delicious
the
and wants to
hook is
finish
just.
him off. Apparently, Hook just tastes really good.
Yeah, Hook. Wow, he's got something going on. The the big orange octopus. I just didn't love. I didn't love anything about it.
I didn't really love its design either. I like octopuses. I think they're a cool animal, but this one just
Hmm.
seemed kind of dopey.
Yeah, yeah, it really did.
So Jane reveals that she is actually Wendy's daughter, and then she and Peter and Tinkerbell fly across Neverland You get a look at various locales from the first movie, like Skull
Yes.
Rock, the Indian village, who I assume the Indians have been cut to down to this basically barely counts as a cameo scene
Yeah, yeah.
due to their characterization from the first film. Like, oh, we can't do that again.
As minimal
Yeah.
as a cameo as possible.
And they also visit the mermaids. And I, at first, when the movie first started, like up until this point, I was assuming that Tinkerbell was the new Tinkerbell, like she's like sweet and friendly and loving. But here you find out she hasn't really changed because the mermaids, even though they're not trying to murder Jane this time, they're just trying to dump water on her.
Yeah.
Tinkerbell seems excited to witness any misfortune befalling her.
Yes.
And so she's upset when Peter Pan saves her from getting dunked and shoves Wendy. Uh, I don't know if she's trying to murder her at this point or not. Wendy, Jane. I,
Jane.
I'm probably going to do that more than once.
I know. I'm with you.
She shoves her off of Peter, and they just laugh at her as she's falling. He saves her, of course, and you get the point that he hasn't changed either because he defends Tinkerbell, saying, "Oh, she's just jealous. All girls get like that around me." So he's just as narcissistic as ever.
Yep.
And they end up at the hideout, which, unless they've moved to a different tree, still seems to be the same. Maybe they just have a different entrance from the first movie. Because you even see the fish that I was talking about in the other episode, the ones that
Yes.
are above them, which
Yep.
I thought it was cool that they kept that detail.
Yeah. It was interesting because there was some real attention to detail and then some really like some real wild departures.
Yeah. Yeah. For the most part, I'm like, this movie does not need to exist. But there were some things in this movie that I did enjoy. The details in the artwork were some of that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So Peter tells the Lost Boys that Jane is to be their new mother, and this is news to her, of course, and she refuses. And again, Peter has not changed a whole lot.
Yeah.
And then you get more Looney Tune style antics in this movie with the pirates as well, because you have Smee giving Captain Hook a massage. This is where the octopus comes back, and you get a line about no sooner did I rid myself of the crocodile than another beast comes to take its place.
Yeah.
I'm just like, what happened there? I want to know what happened with the crocodile. Did he finally wise up and shoot it?
I know exactly. That that whole scene seemed weird to me too. I mean, again, appreciate what they're trying to do, but
Mm.
it's just yeah, I don't know, it didn't work for me. But then none of it really did. So
So with Jane, she does not want to be here at all. She decides she's going to sail away and builds herself a raft, which of course sinks. And Peter tells her the only way out is to fly. And he wants Tinkerbell to sprinkle her with pixie dust, but she refuses until Peter tells her that Jane is just going to have to stay there forever if she can't fly. So then she
sent you.
eagerly douses her in pixie
It's like,
dust.
please get this woman out of here.
There were some moments like that did crack me up.
Yeah, yeah, that was funny.
And quote, this does not work for her though, which leads to her leaving a Wile E. Coyote style hole in the ground as she tries to fly,
What?
which was weird.
It was weird.
It's like normally, like in the first movie, the Looney Tune stuff was kind of just given to the pirates, but now it's one of the main characters just leaving
Yeah,
a leaving a hole in the ground.
everybody gets it. Yeah, she does lots of stuff with the Lost Boys, you know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and the Lost Boys, they're like, I don't know if it's almost like they were being bullies. I don't think that they were meant to be doing that, but it seemed very bullying behavior with the
Bullyish. Yeah.
notebook and then Cubby eating the notebook for some reason.
Yeah.
And Jane, of course, is furious at all this and says that she doesn't believe in any of this because I think she thinks all this is a dream. And she says she especially doesn't believe in fairies, which apparently mortally wounds Tinkerbell, leaving her flightless and near death.
Right. That so they really played on this one that because of Jane's disbelief in Tinkerbell, that's killing Tinkerbell. Right. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
she's dying.
Yeah.
In fact, she does die, really, doesn't she? Or almost, or she's just like barely.
If she doesn't die, she's extremely close
Yeah.
towards the
Yeah.
end.
Yeah.
Because it seems like she finds her body at one point, but then well, we're getting ahead of ourselves, but then she
Yeah. I
kind of
seriously sorry.
wakes her up.
My bad.
No, that's fine. So when all of this is happening, apparently the pirates have been watching this, and Hook devises a plan to trick Jane. So after she marches off into the woods alone, he follows her and then starts sobbing uncontrollably nearby so that she'll overhear. And Jane finds him, and he tells her that all he wants to go do is go home to his dear sweet mother. And he pulls out his pocket watch, which has a picture of his mother in it, but it's clearly just Captain Hook in drag. And like she falls for this, but I'm also thinking like he's the one who kidnapped her, so she should be thinking about that. In
Yeah.
that like obviously he's lying because he's the one who brought you to this place.
I just can't just shake my head.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So he tells her that all he needs to do is get some treasure back that Peter Pan stole, and if she helps him, he'll give her a ride back to London with him. And he gives her this little whistle that she can signal him with when she finds the treasure, and then he
Yeah.
leaves her to it. So Jane goes back to Peter and asks to play a game of treasure hunt. And then this led to probably my least favorite part of the movie. There was this insipid song about all these gross things that the Lost Boys do,
Yeah.
like eating pudding from a trough and rolling in the dirt and refusing to change their shirt, even though not a single one of them wears shirts. They all wear animal
They
onesies.
wear these animal. Yeah.
I was like, this is the
These animal
dumbest song.
onesies. Whatever they're.
I think they were trying to go for a following the leader vibe.
I do too. I think that was the kind of like the goal or whatever or the inspiration. But wow, I thought it really fell flat.
Yeah, no, it was a significant downgrade from following the leader. So they're all doing this ostensibly to apologize to Jane because the treasure hunt was her idea. So they're going along with this to basically say they're sorry for what they did earlier. But they also never tell her about Tinkerbell. And they are also trying to get her to believe in fairies again. But since they don't tell her about all this, it just seems like they're doing this to I don't know. It seems like almost like they're lying to her
Yeah,
to
it
get her to
does.
believe in fairies. It seems
Yeah,
dishonest the way they're going about this.
I agree.
But Jane eventually finds the treasure and then changes her mind and gets rid of the whistle. And the Lost Boys and Peter Pan come in and make her the very first lost girl and give her a fox hat because apparently that's what makes you a lost boy or lost girl is an animal pelt. So did they kill these animals or what?
I know. It's a good question. Oh dear.
And as they're celebrating the finding of the treasure, one of the lost boys finds the whistle that she threw away, blows on it,
Yep.
and alerts the pirates who arrive instantly like they were teleported there.
The speed of the pirates
Yes.
arrive. Yeah. They're just been hanging out there for the whole movie.
And Captain Hook reveals that Jane was his accomplice, and she protests, saying that he promised that no one would get hurt. And then this is like my absolute favorite thing in this whole movie. He says that no, he actually said he wouldn't hurt a single hair on Peter Pan's head. And then he rips one hair out of his head. And he says, this is the one I won't harm. I about died laughing. I had to pause the movie. I was laughing so hard.
Oh, that's so good.
So Jane tries to tell Peter that this is all a misunderstanding, but he yells at her for lying and blames her for Tinkerbell's fading light. And for some reason, Captain Hook takes everyone back to the ship with him except Jane. I don't know why he decides to leave her there,
Yeah, exactly.
but of course, up until this point, she had no idea about Tinkerbell. So she runs back to the hideout, and this is where she finds her potentially dead. She's just lying lifeless with no light glowing out of her. And then you have the same melancholy ballad from earlier playing, except the words have now slightly changed to saying that she finally believes. and Tinkerbell wakes up.
Thank goodness. I felt like they, again, were trying to use that same thing from the play and a little bit in the first one. I don't know, but almost to an extreme because it's just like just because one person in proximity doesn't believe like, that'll kill her. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
It was a plot point. We'll take it for what for
Yeah,
what.
it's just one of those things that the plot needed something to happen, so it happened.
Yeah. Yep. Exactly.
So back at the pirates are planning to keel haul Peter and have him tied to an anchor. And I had to look up what keel hauling was because I'd heard the term, but I didn't know what it was. It was apparently a form of torture performed by tying a sailor up, tossing them overboard, and dragging them behind the ship.
Thanks for that clarification because thank you. And I appreciate that because I was wondering the same thing. It's like, okay, are they just going to attach him to the keel? I mean, what's going to happen?
Yeah, no, I had to look it up because I'd heard the term probably
Yeah.
from Peter Pan,
Yeah.
but I didn't know what it was. There was also a potentially questionable joke here. I I don't know if this is I don't know what they were going for with this joke because it sounds like one of the pirates is either doing a Tito from Oliver and Company impression or just a straight up Cheech Marin impression and says that Peter Pan is like a pinata. I was like, what?
I didn't know what to say. Yeah. Like, at first time, my thought was, did he just say that?
Yeah, with the Mexican accent. I was
Yeah.
like, that is a weird joke.
It's a weird joke. And again, just kind of like what this whole movie is, the stuff is just not consistent and just kind of, all over the place.
Yeah, yeah. I actually that happened, I was like, what? And I paused and I was like, searching the internet is Cheech Marin in this
Yeah,
movie. It's
it's
like
she's hearing a
that's the
voice.
only thing I could think of. It's like what point this joke would have is to have Cheech Marin have a cameo in this movie. But I don't think he did. I think somebody was just like, let's do a
Somebody
joke
was
about
just
pinata
channeling.
with somebody
Yeah.
doing a Mexican voice. I don't know. It was weird.
Right. Yeah, it was weird. And again, to me, totally out of place.
Yeah. But apparently the pirates changed their mind about the keel hauling thing because they cut him down and are going to have him walk the plank instead, although still tied to the anchor. And then there's another good joke here that I actually really liked, where Peter Pan tells the Lost Boys to be brave and not let the pirates see them cry. And then they all go around to the other side of the mast out of view and start sobbing.
And they're just bawling, yeah. Yeah, that made me laugh.
And at this point, Jane and Tinkerbell arrive, and this leads to another Looney Tunes style sequence where the Lost Boys are free and they start chasing everybody all over the ship. And maybe I missed something, but like Tinkerbell is trying to get a key from Captain Hook. But what was the key for? I did I miss
Yeah,
something? I don't know what
yeah.
the key was for.
I think by that point, I was just like, I really don't know what's going on, and I just wish this movie would end.
Probably, but it was not clear what the point of
No.
the key was. I was so
Yeah.
confused. And it could have been that I was just kind of checking out. Maybe I missed something.
Yeah, ditto.
And during all this time, Captain Hook seems like he has very ample time to kill Jane because like there's the whole thing similar to the first movie with up in the sails of the ship. And then she reveals that she can fly, even though like he had her like at sword point for so long, she should have flown away long before
Yeah,
this.
right.
I think they were just waiting. They wanted a dramatic thing to happen, so that's why they did it that way, but it made no
Yeah,
sense.
it didn't make any sense. Yep, agreed. Kind of like the whole movie.
If yeah. And then Peter uses the anchor to sink the ship, which wakes up the octopus, who now just wants to indiscriminately eat all the pirates and chases them all out to sea.
Yeah, it's like forget Captain Hook. He's like get greedy.
Then they all fly back to London. And at this point, this made me think of something that I didn't think of with the first movie, even though I should have. It's like apparently this everything with Neverland works according to Narnia rules because no time seems to have passed. Because like
Right.
with the first movie, yes, it's obvious that it takes place in the same night, but with this one, it was like there was this time limit, like
Oh, there
specific
was like,
about her having to leave, and they
hmm
were gone for so long that it really stood out to me the fact that she came back on the same night.
yeah, that was kind of again confusing to me.
Yeah. Which of all
Too.
the things is the least big deal. Like it can be Narnia rules. I don't mind. It can be Narnia
Yeah,
rules.
yeah, well said.
But yeah, she wakes up in her room same night that she was kidnapped. Then she goes and apologizes to Wendy and her brother, and she tells Danny everything that happened while Wendy goes out to look up at the sky, and she meets Peter and Tinkerbell again. And apparently there are no hard feelings between her and Tinkerbell because Tinkerbell seems happy to see her again.
Yeah, Tinkerbell was very gracious. Go figure.
I did like that they had a moment with Wendy at the end. That was kind of nice. It would have been more poignant if it had been Catherine Beaumont, of course, but
Right. Exactly. I think that's probably the only part that was kind of heartwarming.
mhm,
Literally for me, like, oh yeah,
yeah,
I mean, the World War II stuff was interesting in the beginning, as we discussed, but that was actually was a nice moment. I'm glad they included that, and I'm glad that I was alert when that happened, that I
mhm.
wasn't already just in the complete brain frog, like, oh my goodness, get this movie over with.
Yeah. So then Danny and Jane come up with her and watch them leave. And as Peter and Tinkerbell are leaving, their father is returning from the war. And that's basically the end. I wonder if that means that they don't have to leave. I don't know.
I wondered about that too. Maybe that's an assumption I made, but who knows if that's, really, let's say that it is, huh? Like the dad's home because the war is, to a point that, he could come
Yeah.
home and the kids don't have to leave.
Yeah.
But
And then that's basically the end, except I also wanted to make note of the fact that over the credits, Do You Believe in Magic starts playing, which is
yeah,
like, I mean, thematically, lyrically, it fits, but
sure.
tonally, it's like wildly out of
Only it's
place.
just like it's so out there. I, you know, yeah, I was kind of, I don't know. I mean, I wasn't just like super offended, but it was just like
No,
it's
I
kind of
just I
appalling.
laughed. I wasn't offended. I
Yeah,
was just like, this is so weird.
it's so weird. But I thought that the drawings, the art that they were
Yeah,
bouncing around was charming. Because
yeah.
again, because I love this. I love these characters so much,
Hmm.
and in a way, in a strange way, that was the best part of the movie for me. Other than the scene with Wendy and Peter Pan at the end, then
Yeah.
I mean, because it's a fun cover of "Do You Believe in Magic" that they were playing.
Hmm.
But if not, or was it the actual original?
I'm not sure. I should have looked it up. I
Yeah,
I don't think it matters, but it
it
because
doesn't
it
matter.
sounded similar
It
enough
was
that
BB Mac.
okay. I
So
wonder if that was used on a Disney Mania album. Because I recognize the name BB Mac. That's
I wouldn't
probably
be surprised. Yeah.
they might have been one of the artists who was on one of those albums.
I thought that art was really cute, that they had done of all the characters and the way they were bouncing around.
Yeah, I love it when credits do something different than just scrolling words on a black screen.
Yes,
So this had some great credits.
but still, you know, you paid a price to get there. And
Yeah.
again, I hate to be such a jerk, Jonathan, about these cheap quills. It just to me is they're so frustrating because the originals are so wonderful, and I
Hmm.
just felt like these cheap quills really diminished
Yes.
the value and the meaning of the original.
Hmm.
But
Like normally I don't have a problem with sequels. Like sometimes I like sequels a lot.
yeah,
But
yeah,
when they do a sequel to a movie that was so long ago, it
yeah.
just kind of feels disrespectful to the original. At this
Mm-hmm.
point, it's like make a new version of the story and then make a sequel to that
Mm-hmm.
instead of making a
It's
sequel
true.
to a movie where the almost the entire cast has passed away. Like
Yeah.
literally no one from the original movie other than Catherine Beaumont who
Catherine
was
Beaumont, who they like didn't
replaced.
use.
Everyone else is not involved.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a weird choice.
I agree.
And I'm glad that we are no longer getting movies like this.
You know, I'm really glad that those days are over. I hope they never come back.
Yeah.
Although, I've got my own issues with these remakes, these
Yeah.
photorealistic CGI remakes. But
I feel like I'm more easy on them than most. I would say that most of them do not need to exist, but if they're gonna make another movie, I prefer the remakes to these direct-to-video sequels.
oh
I
yeah,
would much
and
rather they remake Bambi than they give us a Bambi 3, which they
yeah,
could potentially
exactly.
have done.
Cinderella 4. The but yeah, because they typically throw a lot of money at these. I mean,
Yeah.
they bring in A-list directors, and great cast, and they fork out a lot of money. So not
To
that should makes
middling
it good.
results. It doesn't feel like
Yeah,
it's worth the results usually that they get.
exactly. But I agree with you. It's like too bad they couldn't have done like some kind of a new Peter Pan story, and then kind of took it down
Yeah.
that road.
Oh well.
I got to tell you, and I think we'll probably talk about this in the future. Jake and the Neverland Pirates is so much more fun than this movie.
Oh, really?
I
I
think.
haven't watched it yet. I have my list that I want to watch before we
Well,
record anything
and it's
about it.
made for preschoolers. It's like it's all about let's count together and let's problem solve and stuff. But
Okay. I knew it was for little kids, which
yeah,
is why I didn't figure we needed to spend a ton of time on it, but I wanted to like get a good sampling of it. I just haven't had time to watch them.
yeah. Well, I was able to watch it just a little bit. I did, and I had seen some of it before, but I really hadn't, and I don't want to go down this road necessarily. But it just was saying though, because it was a fresh take on these characters.
Hmm.
And Corey Burton's back to voice Captain Hook, and actually so is
Jeff
Jeff
Bennett.
Bennett to
Yeah.
voice Mr. Smee.
Yeah.
But I think it's a fun way to interact with those characters versus this movie, which just
Hmm.
is so disjointed and again just kind of just unnecessary.
Yeah. Yeah. It'll be interesting to see what I think of it.
Yeah, I'll be anxious to hear what you think.
It'll probably be one of those things where it's fine, but I don't know that it will make me want to watch the entire series.
Oh, I mean, there's no way. I mean, I could, as again, I'm so beyond not being the target audience, but
Yeah.
I just thought if we're gonna have if just I think to prove your point that if we're gonna have another Peter Pan thing, let's just do kind of a fresh take and kind of take it down its own
Hmm.
different path rather than a remake of a beloved story that really didn't need a remake,
Hmm. Yeah, it'll be interesting to
in
see
my
what I think of
opinion.
the remake too, because I have not yet had a chance to watch it. I figured I'd
I
wait until
I've watched it.
before we get to it. I figure I'll just wait and watch it sometime closer to when we record that
Yes.
episode.
Yeah. I had some time and I've just been super curious. So I watched it. So again, looking forward to our discussion with you.
Yeah, we will be back. Well, probably for people listening very soon, probably in the next episode to talk about one of the other things that we've just been talking about.
Right.
So until then, do you want to let people know where they can find you if they want more from you?
Yes. On Twitter, I'm at Stanford Clark, and I have a movie podcast and blog at moviespastandpresent.com.
Okay. Well, until next time, we will see you then. Thanks for listening to Every Version Ever. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe and follow my co-hosts as well. My link tree and all of our links will be in the description below. If you want more of my content, all my podcasts are available on YouTube as well as most podcast platforms. If you enjoyed this show, check out one of the other podcasts or check out my Patreon for bonus and extended episodes you won't find anywhere else. We'll be back soon with another brand new episode, so thanks for listening and we'll see you next time.